Yeah. Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. We are here. We are live, which is a bit more outside the realm of possibility than you might have thought. It's been a day technologically for a lot of people, but my main computer is down. We're on the backup. We're making things work. We're improvising, and I am joined this evening by a person who's no stranger to technological glitches, the animated atheist, the Lego enthusiast, the what would you call it? Cafe epistemologist? Something like that. It's Niddy 2.0, in fact.
Yes. How you doing? You're good, yeah. Now that you're all
alive.
booted back up and alive, yeah. How's everyone in the chat? I hope the chat is doing well.
Yeah, we've got a hello to everyone, both now and in the future. Hello, future people. We've got Pragmatic Crystal afterwards, doing all the links and things. Of course, the link to Niddy's channel right there, also in the title and in the description. Yeah, Pragmatic is she's so fast. I don't know how she does it, but yeah.
Hi, Victoria, left-handed Jedi.
Yep. Good Victoria stuff. And Jedi and James.
People I don't know yet.
PC's
but
beating
you
us
will all
to
get
the
to
ending
know me,
already,
and that'll be just as good.
That's right. Niddy, I have known you for almost 2 years at this point, and we're just now getting around to this. I'm not sure how that happened.
You plugged my old channel a few times.
That's true.
Whoopsie.
It happens. A lot of channels change their name, rebrand. It happens.
Yeah,
it's the nature of the internet. Yeah.
We'll go with that.
I mean, in
a sense, that is true for me, in a way. We can talk about that.
Yeah, we certainly can. But as you astutely mentioned, the point of these shows is to introduce creators to the community that they may not be aware of. Most of the people here know very well who you are, but for those few who don't, and the people who may be watching later and have no idea what the hell is going on with anything, would you care to describe what it is you do?
Yeah, so I'm Niddy. Whoop, whoop. I started out on YouTube exposing my former culty church, and I've since moved on, kind of changed the focus of what I want to do, what I want to talk about. Right now, my channel is focused on what I'd like to call my "It's Best to Be an Atheist" or Believe in God, Why? Where I take a whiteboard out to a campus Panera Bread and I write one of those questions or statements on it and I say, let's chat. And then people come up and talk to me and I try to work them through why I'm not convinced Christianity is true. And I have them tell me why they believe Christianity or their religion is true. And primarily, it has been an attempt at just like exchanging, you know what I mean? Like, here's what living out as an atheist, a former Christian, is like, right? And to break down like some pastoral stereotypes of atheists. I can explain more about that too. And so I try to record those conversations and put them up as videos. Now I've had a really swamped time at work, so I haven't gotten around to editing my last one from October still. Um, and I want to lean that in real life more towards actually like atheist evangelism in a way. And when I figure that out, I will start posting that as well. And then I do response streams or things that are really important to me that I want to talk about, or things that I've seen in the apologetic space or cultural Christianity space that I want to talk about just live. And that usually works out very well for my schedule, the way my life is. I'm a dad and I work full time, obviously. So I'm not like you, right? Or, like the skeptic where you can focus on editing and YouTube can be
Well,
something you do. Well, you can do YouTube more than I can, really. Let's be. I'm just not in a situation where I'm just like a hanker down video editor. I wish I was, but I'm not there. So my channel, post videos of conversations. They're like a podcast type format. I can get into why that is too. And then I do some live streaming talking about like cultural issues, cultural Christianity, just how I feel about those things. Maybe I add some of my biblical knowledge to it. And sometimes I have guests that come on. We goof around. So there you go. That's Niddy. It's a little bit of a mixed bag. It's like Mark Reed light.
well, in some ways, you're a bit more spicy than Mark.
Oh,
I love
yeah.
Mark, but he is insufferably polite sometimes.
It's true. It's true. Wait, what you mean responding to things or even engaging callers?
Oh yeah, yeah. Talking with people, like he goes out of his way to be respectful and so
Oh,
forth. And I know you're not disrespectful, but you do get a little more spicy sometimes.
it's true. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And there's the channel. Yeah, we got some action going on in the chats here. Left-handed
Ooh.
Jedi sends
Oh, thank
20
you.
super chat for $20. Thank you so much. And says hope this helps with the pooter. I hopefully it won't come to that. But thank you. I appreciate it. And also a
Hmm.
couple of members, Joe, the Kentucky Atheist, member for 10 months, and Heckleck, member for 9 months. Thank you both.
Yeah.
It's nice having members who've been around for a little while now. We're racking up some numbers, but you've been around a while yourself.
Yes. Hmm.
You mentioned, biblical knowledge. It's one of the things that impresses me about you is the depth of
Oh,
your knowledge of the Bible. Does that come from the aforementioned cult that you escaped from?
yeah. So the group I was a part of for 12, 13 years ish of my adult life, I converted and was convinced of Christianity in my early 20s. And the way that my former church kind of worked was a bit love bomby, trying to really offer you something that's novel, that you're not really experiencing there out in the world, right? We have answers to your life and how it works, and we're going to really engage you and cultivate you the more that you are interested. So it's like this feedback loop that pulls you in further. And along with that is the urging to learn a lot about the Bible. And the more that you are engaged with learning about the Bible, yes, it's within their like framework and stuff, but the more you are engaged with that, the more they're going to focus on you and the more that you're going to get praise, reward, and opportunity to speak for people, to work with that text, to maybe even get more recognition, right? And to be like an influencer in that in group. And that was very much me. And so, I got to practice discipleship. I worked with younger gentlemen to try and figure out how Christianity worked in their lives and how we would apply the Bible to their situations in their life. And um, I got to teach like home groups, small men's groups. Um, and I loved teaching. It's one of my favorite things to do is talking in front of people and explaining ideas. Makes sense that I would be a live streamer, right?
Mm-hmm. Very
Um,
much.
and so the church, when you really invest yourself in that biblical teaching kind of thing that they have going on, they have a whole curricula that they offer,
Hmm.
right? And so there's like a intro to the Bible. That's your first class that you take, and they give you like the overarching view that a lot of Christians just take for granted, right? Like if I just even with the Christians I sit down with on campus at Panera, if I get one of like the more nominal ones, I could just be like, "Can you explain the general structure of the Bible to me?" And they'd be like, "Well, there's an Old Testament and a New Testament, and it like ends crazy, and the beginning is hard to understand, and it puts me to sleep." Right? And that's about as deep as it would go. But like these campus ministry kids, they'll be like, well, the whole thing's about Jesus, God working through this chosen people, and then God's fulfilling his plan through Jesus. And there's a bunch of letters written about how that works in your life. And then it ends in the cataclysmic end times, and it's awesome. And I'm like, okay. And that's what Intro to the Bible kind of gets you on board with, right? It gets you to that level of understanding, maybe a little bit more depth to it. And the types of books that are in the Bible, you know, narrative, poetry, wisdom, literature, prophecy, historical, pastoral. All you get to expose to all those genres in the Bible. And then there's Christian growth, where you kind of learn things from a Protestant evangelical framework of, okay, here's how we're going to read the Bible in a more devotional sense and kind of look at maybe a little bit of like how the context of the passage works, but how they relate to each other and how they might relate to your life. And then after that,
Hmm.
you have, if the group kind of looks at you as like a potential, like you got high potential. You're like a rookie that's getting ready to get on the baseball team of holiness. Um, you you get offered the chance to take leadership training classes, and then like there's leadership training level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? And 5 and 6 are for when you're trying to like lead a home group. I got through 4, and those are effectively probably I'd say about 40 credit hours worth of college time.
Dang.
Yeah, because it takes a couple years through weekly, several hour classes. So, like Wednesday night, 3 hour class every week for 9 to 10 weeks.
It makes sense though. They make you work for it so that you're invested in it.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not too costly of classes. So, it's not like, Scientology where you pay like $1 million to take a class. But
Oof.
with how many young people and young adults they have, it does add up. Like it's like $50 to $100 depending on which class you're taking. And so that's where I gained a lot of this biblical lexicon, biblical dictionary in my head, biblical wellspring that I can draw things up from and talk about. And I'm not just totally talking out my ass when I live stream and I'm talking about the Bible or what a Christian is saying. I probably self humble brag. I probably know a lot more than you might think about what I'm talking about. And I'll go on tangents about that kind of stuff when I hit it. And then maybe, Christians who see me in their channels, they might think, oh gosh, here's like an atheist straw manning troll. When it's like, well, I work pretty hard in those chats to not do that now. Um, and, I do understand where they're coming from. And I like that because then when I go out and have these conversations with younger people, I tell them I'm not convinced and then I quote the Bible to them. And they get very confused. And it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's tons of, but it's more than just basically trolling them without trolling them. It it makes them face the idea that they've never really investigated what they believe and why, which is sort of
Right.
the entire point.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Or to at
really
least
nifty.
show them that atheists, not all atheists are like, you're being dumb for believing this, or your book's not worth reading. Right? It's like,
Yeah,
no, I've read it and I still care about it. Now what? I care
yeah.
about it in a much different way now than I did then, but
Oh, for sure. Like
yeah, so
when
that's, oh, go on.
I was just going to say, Kip Davis is another person who is very invested in the Bible
That's right.
and the other texts, who very much does not believe. He says these are important. His for
Dr. Bird, too.
yeah, yeah. There's a bunch of people who are very, these texts are important for mythology reasons, for anthropology reasons, for and understanding what a bunch of people alive today believe in, and
Yeah,
so
what they're
forth.
doing and why they're doing it, right? And
Hmm.
I've started to point that out to Christians I'm talking to. Like part of the reason I'm doing my sign now that I'm post hoc adding on is that some of the value this conversation brings is understanding why we're so divided. Because the policies that we're making and we're talking about are not just something we feel is important. Really, when it gets down to it, there are beliefs and attitudes that are grounded in something else other than what we're trying to do at the top, right? Something that we think about what humans are is motivating our debate on, women's health care, abortion rights, right?
Hmm.
There's fundamental differences. So, what is rooting those differences? What is motivating someone or convincing someone on that stance, right? And getting these younger people to see, like, oh, I need to look a step deeper than just like, you know, bickering that I feel this is bad, I feel this is good, right? No, it's like try to understand why and how someone is holding this position, right? And arguing with you so vehemently. Some of it's community identity politics where
Oh, sure.
they they haven't really looked deeply and considered the implications of some of the things they believe. They're just being told, and if they start to um, doubt that or feel differently, they risk their communal identity, right? They're going to be out of
Mhm.
step with all the people that they're already identified with. And that's scary.
Yeah, it's very much like a team sport for a lot of people. Like I don't question what the head coach says. I'm just, my team's the best because I'm on it kind of thing. And it's a wild way to run your life, but here we are.
Right. Yeah. So to get back to it, that's where all the Bible stuff comes from and why it's still important to me.
Yeah, for sure. And so this group, they're evangelical, but they're
Hmm.
also different from mainstream evangelicals.
Yes.
Could you summarize what sets them apart, and how you got drawn into that instead of just,
Hmm.
say, more somewhat standardized Christianity, for lack of a better term?
Sure. So I think there's a couple categories of evangelicalism that they differ from, and I think it's important to note that. There's like the kind of like what how do I want to put this? Like, oh my God, the Lord is so powerful. Miracles are happening every Sunday. Hallelujah, amen. We're off the rails, stoked every Sunday. That's one kind of like the charismatic, maybe, or the what's the word I'm looking for? Like revival type
Mm.
evangelical that's around. Um, that's one kind. Definitely not that. Okay. So wasn't that kind, and that evangelicalism is kind of a turnoff for people who like to really, I don't know, sit and think. And I've always thought that believing something just because it feels good is not really a good reason to believe it anyway. And I think that kind of belief structure leans towards that, and that's a problem. Um,
Fair.
it's based a lot on your experience, right?
Yeah, the
Um,
Holy Spirit and the
yeah, it's
vibes when you're
raining
all
gold
singing.
from the ceiling.
Yeah.
um, the other kind is just kind of this like we're complete hipster evangelicalism, where it's like we're in the world but not of it. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
really like the social media influencer, like Allie Beth Stuckey type shit, or
Yeah.
Girl Defined, or even Capturing Christianity or Daily Dose of Wisdom. Like there's something about their breed that is just this like we're hip and we're cool and we know stuff, and like you could be like one of us. I mean, Capturing Christianity pretends to be intellectual, but the more social media influencer evangelicalism, they're not like that either. And then there's like the evangelicals who are the conservative sit-arounds, where they just sit and bitch about like culture war stuff, and they are in a holy huddle at their church and they're just pissed off, and they think like all non-Christians just like really suck. And it wasn't that either. And so what drew me in was that they're a little bit hipstery church, right? But they're not like off the rails weirdos, like out very like in that kind of overt way, I guess. And not everyone sits and, pisses about like a culture war. So all of that kind of makes it appealing because it's like it seems like a diverse, more relaxed place from like the outside and as you get into it, right? So your Sundays, which the college group does like Monday and Thursday nights kind of thing. And Kitty, if you hit the buttons, I swear. Um, uh, it's very, laid back. A lot of times there is no music, and the teaching is a PowerPoint where things are like elucidated, Greek words are put on the screen. There's pictures and maps and shit, and they try to make it scholastic-ish, and that's intriguing to someone who's never really been involved with that. Or a typical Sunday where it's like their illustrations are all feely examples and stuff like that, or anecdotes or word association games. Um, and afterwards they open it up for questions, so like anybody can ask a question, right?
Hmm.
Well, how many churches do you get that, right, where at the end of the sermon or whatever, anyone in the pews can go, yeah, so I'm struggling with like the Holy Spirit and masturbation, and then the teacher has to go, whoa, 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 maybe that's something you should talk about, afterwards with me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then some people are like, doesn't it seem like a contradiction here and there? And the the person up there is basically expected to answer with something, and they do. They take an earnest shot at it, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like they want some transparency and engagement. I like that. And so like all those differences are intriguing from the outside, but as you get into it, you realize that the diversity is more the remnants of the people that they were before they became involved.
You make it sound like the Borg where they get assimilated.
Yep. It's like, yeah, it's really like I was a Captain Picard, right, of myself, but then when I was a part of it, like I still have the face, I still have a lot of the interests, but they're toned down to a level that isn't really that, am I really that same person? Right? And the ideas I'm holding underneath like are completely different. The way I work with friendships and relationships and how I evaluate them is completely different. And there is like a mechanistic aspect to it where if someone's just not as interested in Jesus, you scale back your time from them, you invest it more back in the group until you get more evangelistic opportunity.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's not creepy. No.
No, no, it's not a project at all. No, no.
My goodness. So
Yeah.
as they drew you in more and more, got you more invested in learning their way of doing things and, more focused on the process rather than the truth, how is it that you managed to like break through that and start to make your way out?
Well, here's the thing. You said, what'd you say? You said drew me in and made it more about the process than the truth. There was this, they'd speak the value that they value truth. And don't Christian channels do that a lot?
Oh, all
Right?
the time. But
By the
with a
way,
novel
Christianity is
definition of truth.
true.
Yeah.
Right. Or like, is it true that there's no truth? Fucking Frank Turek.
Kitty
Um,
table.
yeah. So, um, that makes it really hard, right? To
Mhm.
even consider so one of the things that it, with these kind of like high control, high involvement, high commitment, um, groups and cults, even cults of personality, is that one belief can start to develop on its own, but then when an ancillary or a complementary belief is introduced and they both get adopted, they kind of interlock to protect each other.
Mhm.
And so when you have the belief that well, I believe um Jesus rose from the dead and that Satan wants to convince me he didn't, right? So,
Mm.
but I believe Satan is real because Jesus rose from the dead. So these two beliefs are like, intertwined. And if you're, the doubt of one is you're taught is coming from, like, it's a circular reason, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, they're self-reinforcing. If you're doubting, it tells you that what you believe is true. But if you believe what is true, it explains your doubt.
Yeah,
Hold
the
on a
fact you
second.
have doubts confirms the whole thing. We're having a brief intermission. While Niddy is preoccupied, as Pragmatic has helpfully pointed out, this show does send everybody over to Maya's for Bad Science Sunday. And this week, the focus on there is it's Dr. Tapioca Weasel's birthday, or close enough, because Bad Science Sunday has to go on a Sunday, you see. And yeah, if you've never seen, you should definitely stick around and
It's a
check that
wonderful
out.
time. There's an emoji
Absolutely.
that's just for me.
That's right.
Anyway,
Mhm.
so all that said, it's very hard to get to a place where that's even possible. Because, and there's like other, I don't want to call it doctrine, but there's other parts of the ethos, the culture, that make it dangerous to get into the position I was in. Namely, if you are becoming less convinced, then there might be sin in your life that's pulling you away. If you stop coming, maybe you never really believed. If you want to go to another church, then you want to be a weak ass Christian and do less than what Jesus asks for. And so those things are always clunking around in the back of your head, no matter how much doubt you have, right? And
Mhm.
so, like I said, that it's not just the beliefs that become important to you, it's the identity that you've gained with those beliefs, right? And so, starting to lose those threatens that. And
Mhm.
so, you try to rescue one and you end up more deeply invested in the other. Um, if you come out on the other side of it, on that side of it. So, one of the things about meeting so often in a church like this is that you're getting an incredible amount of serotonin and dopamine from seeing people face to face and having long conversations and doing things you like together and talking about how you're always on a mission. And all of that just kind of hypes you up a bit. right? And it feels exhilarating, and then maybe you had like a more intimate sharing conversation and you really are helping your buddy stop whack off, and you're real stoked for like how they're going to grow spiritually. And you don't realize how literally high you're getting throughout the week, right?
Yeah, the
And so,
reinforcement, the
well, no, it's like your brain,
yeah,
right? And
it's addictive.
right, exactly. And so that's another thing that can draw you in, is the addiction to the social attention, interaction, the velocity of emotions that can happen. Not that always does, but that can happen through all these meetings. And you're bound to have more of it too when you have younger people, younger adults, like all doing this, right? It's like
Mhm.
high school on Jesus steroids sometimes, right? Or college, we'll call it college, right? So I lost the plot for a second.
You're stuck in a
Oh,
bad relationship with Jesus.
the pandemic,
Ah,
the pandemic broke that, right? It was like it's like
ah,
coming off the happy pills, right? And
mhm.
so I didn't know that this was happening until well afterwards, right? When I started to think about how brains work, right? And so that kind of dissipation of that constant interaction, it slowed life down enough that I started to see who I really am as an adult, or rather, how everyone else actually is as an adult, right? The world is not this constant field of miracles. It's not this constant battle or struggle. And more importantly, there was nothing miraculous happening with me. I'm being told that I have this almighty superpower God living inside me that can do, he's omnipotent, right? Which
Mhm.
I don't want to touch that for now. But essentially, I have the all powerful God able to do a thing, which should be trivial, through me or in me. And of course, like during the pandemic, your temptations ramped up and stuff. And of course, that happened with me. I'm not going to be like, oh, you know, like, deny that there was any sin in my life. Everyone's got some fucking sin, whether they're still believing or not. So shut up. Um,
That's the point.
yeah. And so, I sincerely wanted to repent and not deal with any of that stuff, right? And so, like, I'm, asking God over and over to help me deal with this, help me deal with that, help me make sense of why I feel more dissonant and stuff. And I was like, you know what? Facts don't care about my feelings. I'm going to be willing to listen to what people who don't believe in Christianity are saying about Christianity now.
Hmm.
Not Dawkins, not Sam Harris, not the Great Hitch. Science bless him. Um, but what are people saying now about Christianity? What's the exchange? What are the reasons that people are not convinced now? And I was actually, because of the absolute Covanky spiracies, trying to not say the word,
Yeah.
um,
Fair. Yeah.
and the 2020 flaccid election, um, the conspiratorial side I just couldn't get on board with. I just could not be convinced by anything they were saying. And what started even more dissonance was that these are self proclaimed Christians on board with this. These are people who are getting up in front of the cameras, in front of their churches, saying, Lord Almighty, Holy Spirit working within me, I know you are with me. I know that you love me. And I know that the Democrats are tampering with elections, and there's Jesus is my vaccine, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what is wrong with these people? Like, I don't understand how you can have the almighty powerful God and be completely batshit crazy. Like, with regard to very easily verifiable things, right? And then the whole winter is going on where things are getting more unresty, right, with the results and whatnot. And I see Mango Unchained get up in front of more people and tell them to, give the capital hell. And I'm like, hey everybody, can we not support this? Can we at least think this is a little bit crazy? And then it happens. The May the 6th be never with us. And I was like, okay, now wait a minute. My standards of evidence for Jesus, I've been told, are it's been too early to be a legend. So the idea here is that the narrative, the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus is documented in such a quick period of time in the ancient world that it's very unlikely or nigh impossible that it could be a legend because it was so well historically established, you see.
Yeah.
30
People
to
were
40
still
years.
alive.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
And then here I am, it's 2020 into 2021. I look back and I say to myself, a historical event that I lived through a month ago has legendary quality, has an alternative explanation and narrative, could we say even fantastical, spiritual, or I don't know, miraculous set of claims happening a month ago and some change.
Mm-hmm.
And what are people doing with it? They are making it a gospel in their lives. Really. They really were. Like, I know that I am rescuing my country because I know in my heart of hearts that it's been revealed to me that this was stolen. My freedoms ought to be protected. I have to go march, regardless of consequences, mind you, to do this thing, to live out this gospel truth, which to me is built on a legend of lies for a false American Messiah. And then, to be completely honest, people go, oh, well, people wouldn't march to their deaths for something they knew was a lie. This is the thing. People a month and a half after an event were so sincerely mistaken that they did march somewhere where they could die. And then you go,
several did.
but then they go, oh, but no one really did. They didn't really think that. What do you think is supposed to happen when you march on a federal property where the federal government can respond with force? I mean, get a grip. They were willing to do this with no regard for consequences. So don't give me this shit that they weren't willing to die for it. Maybe they were just foolish enough to do it. Either way, it doesn't matter. These people are convinced and sincerely mistaken about a lie a month and a half out, in spite of the fact that we have this wealth and ability to fact check these things, to listen to an argument for the other side and think, now wait a minute, what's a critical way to think about this? Maybe I might be wrong. And guess what they didn't have 2,000 years ago? The ability to fact check this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're being fed a spiritual narrative that sounds plausible within their spiritual frameworks of the time. I mean, the Greeks believed in deities, right? They're credulous people that already believe in mythical things. So they're able to adopt another mythical narrative, no problem. Do you think they really want to go, hey, this sounds really interesting. I think, though, hold on. I need to drop what I'm doing here. I'm a worker. I'm a farmer in Corinth. But you know what? I'm going to stop my subsistence living, job and household for 8 months, save up a year and a half worth of wages, take a boat to Palestine, and just start going around asking people, hey, you were around when Jesus was, right? They don't even speak my language. Hold on a second. How about you over there? You were around when Jesus was alive, right? And they go, oh, yeah, well, what do you want to know? Did he raise from the dead? How the fuck am I supposed to know? He died on a cross. Like, what? Like, that's what you expect. So when you read the first Corinthians 15 creed, oh, some of whom are alive right now. And the apologists get up there and they're like, oh, the Corinthians could fact check this. Oh, really? Subsistent living people who weren't in the aristocracy are going to save up a year and a half's worth of wages, try and get on a scarce boat, and then travel 700 miles, hopefully during the right season so they don't get in a shipwreck or robbed by a mob through the land travel, and then walk into Palestine and say, hey, do you know this whole story about Jesus? Were you alive back then? Give me a break. Sorry, preaching almost over. But I saw the disparity, right? My standards of evidence for how I act, behave, believe, and run my life are up in the roof for 2020 to 2021. And here I am believing a spiritual narrative 2,000 years ago where my evidence now looks like it's in the basement. Right? So that's where, when I talk about epistemology, that's where I go. Right? How should I know this? Why should I know this? Is this a good reason to believe that this is true? Right? To claim that we really, really know that the Gospels are history or whatever, or that they're not some aspects legendary. When, in the information age, where we could verify this thing, we still have a religion out of nowhere in a month, and it's still plaguing us to this day, and more so. And I do want to say something else with regards to that. Lost the plot for a second.
They get away from time to time.
They get away from time to time. Talk a little bit while I lost my train of thought for a second. Sorry.
Oh, it happens to me all the time.
Now I'm ranting. Now I'm excited. I'm literally hot right now.
Yeah, getting all on fire, but not for Jesus. It is interesting though how we've got all these people believing for generations and generations that the legends about Jesus could not be fake because there were witnesses and story was written down too fast, like you said. And then what happened in 2020 isn't exclusive. It's perhaps the most egregious in modern history.
Yes.
But that kind of shit has been happening all through history where people see within their own lives that same level of myth making that can be verified to be false, but they buy it anyway.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. This past week, I didn't get a chance to record this because I was kind of busy, but I still did my It's Best to Be an Atheist sign. And I had an Assembly of God pastor come up to me and talk to me. And I didn't know that's who or what he was when he started talking. And I started to talk about this, gap difference where my standards of evidence for 2020 were way higher chronologically, that time disparity was way shorter for the election than it was for Jesus. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, the ancient world, information spread differently. And I'm like, yeah, that's my point. And he could not understand it whatsoever. He's like, yeah, but it's so different now. I think what he might have been trying to say was that lies propagate faster. And therefore, but then that's still that's even worse, right? For the ancient world. Help. But it just could not compute. It was like that math meme with Sandra Bullock or whatever, where she's like, and there's the equations and stuff on the picture, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or Julia Roberts. I don't know. Whatever.
I have no idea who's in the meme, but yeah, with those the triangles and things. Yeah.
Yeah, but my conversation with him was pretty interesting. I asked them, now we're on another tangent, I guess, but I asked them, what do you believe? and they're like, well, I believe in God, and I how do I want to say, and I like interrupted him, like, are you just say you're a Christian, like it's not a big, just say you're a Christian. He's like, well, I want to say I'm a follower of Jesus. And I'm like, why? Is that because of Tuesday? And he's like, yeah.
Oh.
He didn't want to call, he's a pastor, and he didn't want to call himself a Christian to my face because of how he sees how things are going with Mango Unchained up there and what it's done to Christianity. That, which for you in the audience, just think about that. There are some churches in this country where the pastor does not want to be identified as Christian because of what they see on the right.
Mm-hmm.
On their side, I guess, right?
Well, that's the point of Christian nationalism, is to try to rope in all the Christians and be like, if you're a Christian, you gotta be on our side. Jesus says
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And people who see what's happening and they're like, this isn't what Jesus would
Jesus.
want.
What is happening? Yeah. I saw a comment today somewhere, where people are like, the evil Mango is so much the Antichrist that not just are they getting Christians to hate, they're getting everyone to hate. And I'm like, I need to sit with that, right? Because when I try to do these kinds of conversations, I try to make it very clear to the believer I'm talking to that I don't think they're stupid, that I'm not mad at God or Christianity. You can't ask me the where in the church did they touch you kind of question, right? It's like, where in the church did they hurt you? It's like, don't start with me. No, it's not that at all. And I'm going to try and respect you. And I want you to respect me. And, with that, that Assemblies of God guy, we had a pretty decent back and forth, and there were other people I've had pretty decent back and forth with. And like I said, I do my sign to help these younger people break those pastoral stereotypes, right? Oh, people who don't have God, they're just so depressed. Oh, people who don't have God, they're just living by their feelings. Oh, people who don't have God, they're mad. They had a bad experience with Christianity. And then I tell them my story, right? And then they go, okay, doesn't fit in the boxes. And one of the things that kind of kept the ball rolling away from Christianity for me was not just that, right? I'm like, okay, well, maybe this whole history thing, it's just a one-off thing. It's just crazy. It's just a cult of personality. Blah, blah, blah. Maybe the Bible's still true, right? Maybe this is just an incidental thing. Okay, so I was studying the book of Joshua in my home group. And what the algorithm had done to me during this time period was associated me with the telltale atheist, associated me with other non-believing channels that I agreed that these people are losing their nuggets over, Trumpicus and Sanitus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with all these atheists, right? And then the algorithm was like, hey, here's the other side, and here's what they're saying now about Christianity. And then I started to listen, and I was like, now wait a minute, what do they say about like the conquest of Canaan? What are like these kinds of how do they talk about this like supposedly historical thing? And I got familiar with the Bible Skeptic, and that's an old channel that I would urge everyone go check out. And he covered in depth the conquest of Canaan, the scholarship around it, and addresses like the prophecies in Psalms and Isaiah, and really address them in a way that out of all of my apologetics training, out of all of my apologetics arguments, there's nothing that can touch this stuff. And I just kept getting less and less convinced that Christianity was true. And I eventually, like, over the course of like 8 months, came out towards the end of a summer of 2021, and I'm like, I guess I'm not convinced Christianity is true anymore. Huh. And then it took a couple more months for me to be like, oh, damn, what does that mean for a lot of stuff? And so I've had to think about all kinds of things that I never thought I would have to think about, like, what's going to happen after you die? Are any other religions believable? Like, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You want to know the funny thing? Is at the tail end of that process, I went onto Pine Creek's channel to talk to him. That was like my first exposure to being on YouTube and talking about this.
Oh, good.
I couldn't, the other day I went digging for it and I couldn't find it. It's in like the Canadian Catholic era of apologetics and this sphere of the atheosphere of YouTube. But yeah, there you go.
So
that's what I
That's a
tell
lot.
people when they ask me, you know, like what was like a flashpoint for you? And I'm like, well, it was this kind of dissonance thing historically. And then encountering, you know, just information from, I was taught, you know, in my church to value scholarship, to try and like listen to both sides of things and adopt the thing that seems most plausible. And then what do you do when that's not in agreement with the Bible, or at least how you're told to read the Bible? Well, you shit out of luck. Right? And now I tell people, I don't think you really get to choose what you believe, because what you believe is what is driven by what you're convinced of.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I can convince you that I'm a purple unicorn that lives inside of a human suit. Or at least not easily. I can't convince you that easily, or that you have a sandstorm happening outside your house. Like everything's turned to desert, Ember, and there's a sandstorm outside your house. Go. Are you convinced? Do you believe it?
I mean, that one's fairly easy to check.
Right. And it's like there's an incorrigibility to a lot of things where you're just like, okay, no matter how hard I try, and I think religion and Christianity can get to that place for you. It's no matter how hard I try, if I'm going to say that I believe it, if I perform the action of belief, so I'll get into that in a second, that I'll know I'm lying. And I just can't live that way, not sanely. And so I say that being convinced is an internal state you're compelled to have. Belief is the expression of your convincedness.
Okay, so it's an emergent property.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I hate it when Matt Dillahunty makes it a tautology. He's like, I don't think you get to choose what you believe, because what you believe is what you're convinced of. And I'm like, no, you're just saying that you're convinced. You're convinced. Like, that's stupid.
Well,
like there has to be something different in what you're saying. Otherwise, it's just silly. Like, and I can understand why a Christian would be like, what you said doesn't make any sense, because you're just using the definition and what you're defining a word by itself, and that doesn't work. So I had to think about like, what is the actual difference between these two things? And that's my definition. Anyone can have it. You can disagree with me and philosophically lambaste me. I don't care.
Yeah, we can fight it out. But I mean, that is the key. It isn't even so much what the specific definition you land on is. It's
Right.
the fact that you've thought about it, that you put some time into considering what these things are, what they mean, and how they interact with describable reality.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's incompatible with blind faith type beliefs.
Right.
But I do want to ask,
Mm-hmm.
um, it it's a compelling story, and there's quite a lot
Well,
of
thanks.
story, but that none of that entails becoming a creator and trying to
That's
fight for the
right.
other team. So
That's right.
what got you there? What made
Mm-hmm.
you start doing what you do?
So part of it actually was that I started to see how damaging and toxic my behavior was from my former church. And I wanted to chronicle that in a way, or at least let that stuff out in some way.
Mhm.
And it really did gain a little bit of traction in our like community and area for people to hear about this um, culty church in the middle of Ohio and what they did and how they did
Yeah.
it. And there was a an article in the Daily Beast about it. If you're curious, it's called Dwell Community Church in Columbus, Ohio. I don't care if you know where I live. My face is all over the internet. It doesn't matter.
It
Um,
happens to all of us at some point.
yeah, fuck it. Um, but starting to kind of tell that story from the inside, right, is just before like Happy Shiny People and things like that were coming out. Um, and there was a book that came out called Cultish that I was exposed to, and that helped me kind of collate these ideas and express them. Um, and that when you feel like you have the truth, you want to tell people, right? And that aspect of me hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is now what I'm convinced of, right? And I think it's important enough to talk about it on a regular basis on the internet, right? To spread that influence, to at least boost that influence and or discussion about this thing across, this atheo-Christian sphere that we're in, this trough of the algorithm that puts us towards like the inspiring philosophies, the capturing Christianities, or like the guy with 300 subscribers who's trying to become another cookie cutter Christian YouTuber, right? Or like me, who's just trying to do like Mark Reed Light. I don't know, like making these connections to each other so that the conversation's happening more and more. But people are also seeing and hearing the stories from different parts, different perspectives, right? And
Mhm.
I want to do that so that I feel like I'm contributing to some kind of cause. And I'm a dad who works a sometimes really taxing, number jockey job.
Mhm.
I push around numbers for privileged people, aka I'm a web developer. Um, that's what I call my job title. Uh, but how outlet like this is a way I feel I can contribute with my limited time and resources, right? So I try to do that online. And sometimes I'm a troll on like X or whatever, but I'm trying to get a little bit better about that on YouTube. I only call you names if you earn it or if
That's
I think
fair.
you're just lying.
Yeah, you can't give those things away for free. People have to earn this shit. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
absolutely,
And so
absolutely.
that's what motivated me to be a creator, and that the barrier of entry to at least start streaming is pretty low. And I feel like people do seem to want to hear from me. I mean, I like teaching too. I like um, trying to get people to understand other concepts. I like relaying my non-believing experience to those biblical passages and what I'm watching and how to interact with it. Maybe help people. The Bible skeptic. Um, for
Oh yeah.
Karen, yeah. It's an oldie but a goodie. Anti-Citizen X, Philosophy Engineered, the same name. Go check out that. The counter-apologetics series for them is mwah. Like he deals with like the paradox of omnipotence and which I think is probably one of the best ones because he uses John Delancey's Q
Mm.
as like the way to talk about it because they love Star Trek. Um,
Hell yeah.
And I stumbled across that while I was kind of deconstructing. Oh, I hate that word so much. Um, but while I was going through that process where I was becoming less convinced, I got introduced to those videos, and I'm like, oh yeah, some of these other apologetics, maybe they aren't that great. Um, and so,
Yeah.
when I started to see the other flaws in the other reasons that you can try and escape and recapture your Christianity, it just didn't work. It just didn't work. They weren't good. They actually weren't good reasons. So yeah, that's other content, and I like to share that stuff with people. Like, hey, go find this. Go see where I've gotten this idea from. Because I'm not like a magical, philosophy cat or something where I can go, meow, here's something new and amazing. Meow.
I think
Maybe
every idea,
that's me, but not not the ideas.
maybe,
It's not
yeah.
the ideas.
Well, like you
I'm the
were saying,
magical philosophy cat.
yeah, it's not just the ideas. It's the the order they're presented, the way they're presented, the spin they're put on, the flavor of personality that gets people to watch long enough to engage with the
That's
ideas.
right. Yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah. Not everyone's a skeptic. Not everyone's a Jimmy Snow, Not everyone's a Matt, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
everyone's or an R and Ra, like everyone's got a completely different delivery and way they engage this stuff. Oh, and mine gets a bit sexual. Okay. If you don't like boobs, wieners, cum jokes, they're gonna happen. The words just ejaculate straight from me, and I have trouble keeping them in. All right, so wear protection for your ears if you need to.
Caution adult content. But
Yeah,
you do bring a unique mix, I dare say, because there are, as you mentioned, a lot of different deconversion style things. There's a whole bunch
yes,
of ex-cultists of various flavor. There's
yeah,
Ryan Cultastic and Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels, from former Jehovah's Witnesses. We know a whole bunch of former Mormons like the Sinister Porpoise, and Jimmy Snow himself. And shoot, Telltale, Morgan
yeah.
Owens.
James
He's
Fordor too.
mhm. Yeah, there's a bunch of people, but
Oh, you lagging.
I person I know whose former dwell,
Mm,
and
mm-hmm.
I'm like, what is this? I've never heard of this. Now I ran across you in initially in somebody else's chat, and you showed up and the person said, oh good, Niddy is here, and asked a question about the Bible, and you just bloop dropped the answer, and
Oh,
I was like, what?
yes.
What?
There is that. Yeah,
Yeah, who is this person? And it happened on several other channels, and I'm like, okay, I have to find this person. And
yeah.
your channel, or your original channel, was not the easiest to find because it was something like Niddy
Oh,
underscore AA or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah. It was so for a
Yeah.
while I started the Apologia route of being a cartoon. And part of that was that I didn't want my actual face on it for a little bit. And the other part was that, well, I had kind of like a form of stage fright, to be honest. Like it's
Mm.
easier to be behind this character, this avatar, than to just let your whole self be on the screen, right? In this new way, now that I'm like, oh, it's just like church and people saw me and I talked about this and, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, this is my church and you are my people. Um, right. And
It's
so,
time for services.
yeah, yeah, you are Victoria. Yeah, yeah. But so yeah, that's why I started the way I started, and I wanted to call myself the animated atheist. And by the way, my animated character early on, its arms were a little quirky, so it looked like I was scratching my ass all the time with it, and it's really funny. That's deep in the archives, but so yeah, I have drifted away from covering my old church, and I had some things like kind of knocking around in my head in my life that prompted me in a not great way to restart my channel. So I restarted it, but again, I'm trying to focus on those conversations I have with people in public that I record, or just like the occasional like counter-apologetics or call-in type stuff. Now, though, I am thinking about covering more of the like right wacko Christian stuff and being a more vociferous and opinionated voice about that stuff in a more live fashion. Like I just went over Allie Beth Stuckey in my last stream, and here's a little preview, microcosm of it. So I was perusing her page of videos, right? And of course, she's covering like the election and stuff. Trump won the election, YouTube, fine. Um, but she was like, look how the media doesn't cover this softer side of Donald Trump. Look, he's hugging a kid. Aw, this guy's a
Ew.
sweetheart. And I'm like, look, lady,
We know how he talks about kids.
we can go through the historical record, and I'm sure we can find a picture of Hitler cuddling Ava Braun, and that was his wife's name or whatever, one of his wives, whatever, his wife and their kids, and they're in a family photo with their dogs, and aw, isn't Mr. Adolf just such a wonderful family man, right? When in the next week, day, few hours, we must exterminate and eliminate the enemy within. These people will have no quarter for them. You know what I mean? They don't deserve to be in this country. It's like, okay, now hang on a second. Which one is the real person? Now, this is like when you are in a cult of personality, this should be a natural place of cognitive dissonance for you, right? Where you're presented with this very overt, angry, culture war. I don't want to just. It's hard for them to see, but bigoted, lying person, like verifiably lying just all the time and on weird rants,
You're
right?
eating the
So,
pets.
so there's this person over here that you experience more than this soft family man. Oh, it's so cute. Oh, why doesn't the media cover this part of this person? Well, you know what? If you want the media to cover when Osama bin Laden pets a kitten and pretend that, I don't know, the rest of Osama bin Laden was pretty bad, then there's something wrong with you,
Mm-hmm.
right? It doesn't matter as much what you do in private that's cute. Because I'm sure even like the horrific priests throughout history had family members they loved, they donated money to, blah, 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 blah. Ravi Zacharias, he donated all kinds of money to maybe good charities and stuff, but he was an abuser everywhere else, right? And,
Mm-hmm.
now we have this vociferous liar that it stokes hate and just won't grant people citizenship and dignity, right? Like our armed forces, even. And there's this woman on the side who's going, but aren't they a precious person? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. The one that is standing in front of us, that's the person that we actually are dealing with, right? Everyone has an in-group that they're going to be cute and cuddly to. But it's how they interact with the rest of the world that matters to us. And that's what deserves the attention. I don't care how much that, Trumpicus Ragicus donates to good causes. If they're still going to stand up there and say that trans people aren't humans, that they shouldn't be respected, that women's lives and endangered pregnancies don't need protected, that everyone deserves a free and fair election, that there are truly good immigrants in this country, that they're not eating people's pets and perpetuating the most crime, right? And, that uh, calls armed services and their political opponents, the R word and almost the N word. Like,
Suckers
if
and losers.
if that's what they're doing in front of everybody else, the stuff that they're doing in private that's cute or good or generous, maybe that's their own dissonance for who they really are for everyone else that we have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what matters. So people like Beth Stuckey are really, there's a new term, it's like sane washing this person who can't earn it. Let's be clear. They can't. Let's be clear. They can't earn it. You know what I mean? They can't earn this back at this point. But what it's doing for her audience and her community is giving them a narrative to adopt that can run counter and reduce the dissonance that they have for supporting someone that they ought to recognize as a problem.
It's apologetics, and in fact, it's exactly the same
ones.
as
pretty heinous ones.
Never mind the slaughter of the Canaanites. Jesus loves you. Never mind 20 million people going into indefinite detention camps. Look at how he talks about a puppy or some shit like that. It's exactly the same thing, and for exactly the same reason. It has to be explained to you because it isn't evident.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I'm thinking about engaging with more of that content, but then, sharing it out and being very clear, like, this is where you can stand about this stuff. This is another way to think about this stuff. This is one way you can maybe like understand why that kind of narrative is being put forth on like that kind of channel, right? Like, why even bother like putting those images and things like, oh, it'd be so cute if Trump was a whale psychologist. I mean, I kid you not. That is that's a direct quote. And I'm like, am I going insane? Like, and they put up an AI image of Trump in a recliner and a fucking whale.
Why not? We're fabricating reality now. Why not? So is that the goal? What is it that you hope to accomplish with your channel? The reason you do what you do, the thing you're aiming at.
Yeah. So I want people, and I do share my channel out to the people I talk to in public. I go, hey, here's my channel. I'm really glad we had a discussion. I'm really glad I got to talk to you. Our discussion might end up on my channel, so just be aware that what we've recorded, audio. I only do audio. I'll tell you why in a second. It might end up on there, and you can go here to watch it or listen, really. And my channel is not safe for faith. I like to tell people that it's NSFF, not safe for faith. And so, when you go there, you're warned. So my goal is for people to hear how I dialogue, how they can dialogue too in public with believers, just out and about, right? And I know there's a time and place for us to be. Well, hold on. I only do audio because, one, I'm in a restaurant, basically. And I understand that people around, like, that end up in a shot aren't consenting to have their face on the video. And so it's not easy to filter them out. The other thing is that it grants students and younger people anonymity for the conversation. So I even edit out when they give me their own name or their birthplace or their city. That's the only thing I edit out, though. Like, I try to keep everything else just general flow. Or if they tell me something weird about their sexuality or something, I'm like, I get, like, we're in an actual conversation and it was natural for you to say that, but not everybody needs to really know that on record, right? So I try to be generous with that kind of stuff, but then the rest of it, I just try to make it unadulterated. what they actually and I actually said. So my goal is to get those kinds of conversations and examples out there, to try and sit in their shoes while they try and show them how to sit in my shoes. Um, and then with this kind of cultural responsive stuff, I want to add to that algorithm pile, really. And maybe it's a safe place for people to vent their frustrations with the stuff that's going on. Great. Maybe my channel can be a place for them to relax and feel heard. And I want it to be something that they can share out for atheist laughs, or to share out. It's like, hey, this is a guy who has a different story to tell about this. And every one of our voices, by the way, it tells the algorithm that there is something to be said about this stuff, that there is pushback, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the more we create, make ourselves bastard cousins to all these Christian channels by tagging them and stuff, there is a chance that we can end up in the related videos, right? And we could be like the first channel a Christian sees of a non-believer. Now, do I want to be that channel? I mean, sure.
It wouldn't hurt.
Sure, if they're ready for some dick jokes about their faith and boobies, then yeah, let them on in. But where was I going with that? Adding our voices is important. It creates those relationships for the algorithm between the Christian bubble and our atheist sphere bubble. So keep tagging their channels when you talk about their stuff, right? I want us to all be bastard cousins to all their channels so that their related video section is littered with us. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
At minimum, I want the goal to be algorithmic poison for Christianity. So
Make it so they can't
modeling
ignore us.
conversations, right? Getting breaking atheist stereotypes, for living my life, right? Maybe my content really doesn't do that. But then, to be a part of this community and to add, power, add that connection between this kind of content and our kind of content. So yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that
Bridge
made
the
sense.
divide, you might say.
Yeah, but I mean, JL can produce and stuff.
Oh, he sure can. I'm envious of that man. His meme game is strong. His
It's true.
philosophy
Yeah.
game is freaking nuclear.
It's true. It's true.
And if he ever regrows his beard, that's pretty damn awesome too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's sort of the thing. The reason I do these shows is to help bring greater awareness to the community as a whole, to make members
Right.
of the community aware of other creators they may not have become aware of on their own, but also to amplify our voices collectively. And I do it because I believe that there's a place for every perspective. We all have different experiences, different ways to relate to people. And yours is not only unique the same way everyone else has a unique perspective and a unique set of experiences, but the way you approach things by creating a kind of directly confrontational situation without being hostile.
Yes.
It's not the kind of thing that you really see,
Right, right. Yeah, I make my whiteboard an absolutely audacious, maybe even absurd claim, like, it's best to be an atheist. Let's chat. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that is directly against the narrative that it's best to be a Christian. And like a lot of these campus Christians that come and talk to me are literally trough fed, hey, you have the best religion, the best life right now, believing what you believe, and you have the best chances for success because you're a Christian in college. Right? And here I am sitting here like, nah, it's better to be an atheist. And then, it really does attract people to talk to me, even though that claim is a direct opposition to what they, well, not probably, what they believe in their own internal narrative for their life.
Hmm.
And then, they come and talk to me, even though I've now given them this diametric opposition, and I'm like smiling. I'm like, how are you today? Oh, yeah, I totally think this is the best. Do you want to hear about it? And they do. And that that fascinates me to an extent. But also I like to believe that it does help some people try to understand that the other side, and try to understand that I'm not saying, and it screws with people a little bit too, because at first they think I mean better, as in, like, I just got like the jet skis and the mansion of life now that I don't believe Christianity is true.
If only.
Right, right. Or like, life just feels like oohs and ahs now that I am, living without God or something. And then I'm like, no, 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 no. You don't understand what I mean by better. I mean that there are qualitative differences in here and sometimes out there that are better than when I did believe. And that doesn't make my life like amazing, like I'm on a spiritual mountaintop or an unspiritual mountaintop, like you probably aren't either. Let's
Like a
be
regular
honest.
mountaintop.
Right? Yeah. Um, or my life just seems like it's free of consequence or so. No, it's not better in those kinds of ways, right? We need to talk out what I mean by that, right? And I'm like, I don't have one thing I say right off the bat is that it's best to be an atheist because it significantly reduces your cognitive dissonance. Because I don't have to compare something I've learned or I'm convinced of within a rigid holy text and all of its interpretations, which are still pretty rigid, let's be honest. Like, you're stuck with some kind of direct creationism from a very specific God, right? And you have limits to how openly you can interpret
Sure.
that, interpret that, and still be a Christian, right? But
Mhm.
this evidence that I'm becoming convinced of about, um, evolutionary biology continues to undermine the idea of two literal humans,
Mhm.
right? So now what, right? Well, I literally go through this illustration with people. I can reject the new information and just say it's from Satan, I'm being lied to, and I don't care how, right? I can shelve it, leave myself in a dissonant state, but do whatever I can to distract myself from it. I can try and revise my beliefs into such a way that I can try to have both. But there will come a point where either I have to move into rejection mode or I just allow my beliefs to change, right? I acknowledge what I'm actually convinced by, and then I perform the belief accordingly. And that's what started to happen to me, right? And so now I don't live in this state where I have to relive and re engage that experience. And then along with that, I tell people that it's not that I don't want to believe and be free of consequences. It's because I don't believe, I don't have these cosmic consequences to like ever think about. And that is a better way to live. Like, I don't
Less
have to see,
stressful, at least.
yeah, I don't have to secretly, or maybe not so secretly, hyperventilate about, some thoughts I had, or maybe something I bought that I didn't need. Like, like, who cares? Like, you know what I mean? And then, and also if I find that I'm wrong, so what? I'll erase my damn sign and I'll go back to church. You know what I mean? Like, okay. And that's a great way to live. Like, my mind can change and that'll be okay. Like, it's not the end of the world. And that's why I tell people it's better, you know? And then
Mhm.
sometimes they look at me and go, okay, all right, I don't see it that way. All right, that's not too bad. I had one campus minister go, you know what? There's a lot we really actually agree about, right? Like,
Yeah.
and one time, we'll try and wrap up here in a couple of minutes here, but I was having a conversation with someone from Dwell, actually, that I met, and they're like a home group leader, and we've hung out and gotten coffee a couple times recently,
Hmm.
and we were talking about issues of sexuality. And then I go through like and how I would pastorally minister to people like this. And I went like in depth on it for like 10 minutes. And at the end of the conversation, he just goes, "So how are you not a Christian?"
Did he not get any of?
Right? Yeah, he's like, we agree on so much, and all the things you're saying like are cogent with how I could feel and do this kind of thing. There's only a couple of things really that I can't completely get on board with, but I mean, he was just dumbfounded, and I was like, I think that was a compliment, right? He's like, yeah, yeah, it was, and I'm like, my job here is done.
Yeah. Holy shit, you could be a good person and not. I've heard that from different people for very different
Humble bragging,
reasons, though.
but
You know, like you do
yeah,
something really nice for somebody else, you help them out, or they see you help someone else out, and then later on they find out you don't believe, and they're like, "Wait,
right,
you're not a Christian, but you do
yeah,
nice things. How can it be you do nice things and you're not a Christian?" I'm like, "Well, consider this. How many people have you seen do horrible things who are Christians? It's
right.
these two things are not connected, my friend."
There should be some dissonance there, but hold on, we've got a happy narrative that we can run to and pretend that the really big bad one isn't there. Look at how
Yeah.
many Christians cuddle kittens.
So
Bringing
many
it
so many
back.
kittens. So, yes, we can't have them. Weirdly, the people accused of eating the kittens, predominantly Christian. Go figure.
Yeah, yeah,
It's very strange. Well, we are very quickly running out of time.
yes.
It's almost time to go celebrate our favorite weasel's birthday. So I hope
Ooh,
everybody sticks
weasel.
around for that and check
Yes,
out the nitties in the chat when you get there because they
ooh,
are magnificent
there's
nitties.
huge ones.
Yes. But before we go, uh, do you have any good stuff coming up? And where to find you and for people joining us late, all the things. Do the plugs.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and gather up some content to respond to as I get some time. I'm thinking about doing them mostly early in the morning Eastern time for a little bit before work.
Hmm.
That's gonna potentially be what works for now. I'm hoping this winter it's gonna. I hate like plugging something that it's not here yet, but getting back to editing some live conversations that I had and figuring out some technology issues and doing those more efficiently. Because right now I have to lug around two computers and two microphones, and that's not a good time.
Oof. Yeah.
So, but anyway, I do want to get back into that. Hopefully, when my work, this website launches, I can actually do more fun stuff. But until then, I will do some live stream responses to more of the, Trumpicus, Rageicus gloating that's happening for the next month and a half. And so, yeah, I'm at Niddy 2.0. My channel has videos that talk about in a podcast form. They're my real interactions with Christians on OSU campus about what they believe and why, and what it's like for me to not believe. And then I do live stream responses to cultural Christianity and apologetics. So that's my channel. That's where you can find me. I'm so grateful to this community and people that lift me up. Just plugging away a few subscribers every couple weeks. Loving it. I love hanging out with everyone here. I love the comments I get. And you're all great people here. And Ember, she's a doll, and you have to like and subscribe and hang out with her too.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So there you go.
We all work hard in our own way and try to make things work, try to make time, try to do what we can. because unlike some of our counterparts on the other side, we actually care. We're not getting paid millions of dollars. We're not getting, thousands of people sending in their seed money to get blessings from God. We're doing this because it matters to us what's real and what kind of world we're going to live in tomorrow.
Yep.
Which is a wild concept, I know. And I say all that in that particular way because in honor of Niddy being our guest this evening, I'm gonna not do my typical sign off. Instead,
oh yes.
once I have to find the button. Now I found the button. Okay. Instead, I will say
that's
Niddy. Good night, folks.